Good morning to all. Welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Forum WEF-DC panel on gender diversity and corporate governance. I'm Paula Tavares. I'm a senior legal and gender specialist with the World Bank Group and excited for this conversation with three amazing women and experts on the topic. As a brief intro, the World Bank Group and IFC work shows that gender diversity in corporate governance is good for business, good for economic growth, and the right thing to do. Research has shown that good corporate governance helps firms improve performance, drive growth, manage risk, attract and retain investors, and weather financial crises. And that to be truly effective, a board requires a diversity of skills, cultures, and views to make smart decisions with lasting impact. A growing body of research shows that a broad set of business benefits is associated with gender diversity on corporate boards. These include improved financial performance and shareholder value, increased customer and employee satisfaction, rising investor confidence, and greater market knowledge and reputation. Gender diverse boards and senior leadership are also positively correlated with overall company growth and their environmental, social, and governance performance. More companies are recognizing the value of boards that feature a mix of well-qualified male and female directors representing a range of perspectives, experience, and background. Research also indicates that more investment fund companies are including gender diversity indicators among their criteria, a move that suggests investor confidence may improve with the addition of women to a company's board. Despite proven benefits, women are still underrepresented and progress is slow. According to a 2021 study, globally, women hold only 19.7% of board seats, only 6.7% of board chair positions, only 5% of CEO, and 15.7% of CFO positions. Against this background, I wanted to introduce our panelists today who will bring different perspectives from their work on the topic and shed some light. First of all, Leire Gartzia is a gender equality expert, researcher, and professor focusing on issues including gender roles, leadership, and stereotypes. She's a professor of leadership at Deusto Business School in Spain, earned a European PhD in organizational psychology, and was a postdoctoral fellow at Northwestern University. She is also a guest editor in leading gender journals, has contributed with chapters in gender handbooks such as the Oxford Handbook of Gender Organizations, and her research has been recognized by the Academy of Management, Best Paper, and the Dorothy Harlow Distinction in Gender Studies. Patricia Gabaldon is a gender equality and knowledge innovation expert. She has been a professor of economics for over 17 years and currently leads the Bachelor in Economics program at the School of Global and Public Affairs at IE University. She teaches courses and seminars on gender equality, diversity training, and hidden corporate biases for different multinationals, focusing on mainstreaming gender and gender equal policies in operational and analytical work in different sectors, and conducts research projects in developing countries to understand women's economic empowerment and leadership. Margarita Maldonado is an organizational psychologist graduated from the Universidad de los Andes and currently a manager at Page Group. She is a specialist in human resources management and organizational development at Coach Associate, with experience on talent management projects, implementing management models and evaluation techniques such as assessment center and design of programs for professional development. With that, let me turn to our panelists, and I'll start with Leire Gartzia, please, and ask, from your work, you've been studying female leadership in differences in leadership styles, gender roles, and their impact in outcomes. Can you share with us some of the key aspects of your academic work, the findings, and particularly why female leadership is relevant?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Paula. I also feel excited about talking here today. That question is not easy. And you know, there are many reasons why female leadership is obviously relevant. Let me first start maybe saying that it is relevant to change leadership itself, right? Because organizational dynamics are operating in many different ways at many levels, right? With identities, with the relationships that people have at work, with cultural values at the organizational level, and understanding leadership from a gender perspective is in itself a tool to change leadership itself. And something that I think we have to realize here, and that's something that my work has focused around, is to realize that sex and gender are not the same, as we already know. But sometimes we forget this when we are talking about female leadership and gender issues in leadership. So we know that sex is that biological category, even when it's socially established, but we refer to being male or female, right? Which is a basic part of gender. And then we have gender, which is more complex, and it refers to those typical masculine and feminine traits and roles and cultural stereotypes and so on. So the first thing to realize, as I said, is remembering that these are two separate things. So to understand female leadership, we have to understand that we are not only talking about having more women, which is of course the case, but we are also talking about having a different type of leadership, which is more in line with the stereotypically feminine values, right? And that's what we usually call, at least in social psychology, we call it communion. So these two traits or set of gendered dimensions that we have are communion and agency. Communion is the one representing these stereotypically feminine traits and roles, like being sensitive, being empathetic, oriented to other people. And agency is more the self orientation and being more assertive, ambitious, competitive, and so on. So, and I'm saying this because this distinction is critical for my research and for what I think it's important to understand female leadership, which is basically that, of course, we have examples that women can be more communal, and in fact they are. Research shows they are more communal than men, and men are overwhelmingly, they are surprisingly limited in their communal orientations, right? But we also know that women can be very agentic in their expression and in their leadership styles. We have examples like the typical Margaret Thatcher example that we all cite, and maybe more recently these female leaders, for example, in Europe, who are leading the process and the war with Russia, for example. And we have Ursula von der Leyen, for example, representing a type of leadership that is very punitive, and it's very stereotypically masculine in the way of approaching the problem. But still, we have this example. So we know that women can be as agentic as men are, and that can also be a problem. So going back to your question of why female leadership is important, I would say, and I finish with this, that first of all, it's because it's a justice issue. So it's the right thing to do, as you said before. So, but this is only capturing the sex dimension. We have to put more women there because that's the right thing to do, and because we need to give them the opportunity to have a better salary, to promote, and so on. But we also need to take into account that it also opens a door to do things differently. But that's not so straightforward, and that's not always simple, because we have to fix the whole system, and we have to change the way we do things in leadership roles, and that's not so easily accomplished. So we have both advantages and disadvantages.
Excellent, thank you so much. I think those are important points, and I think very relevant to keep in mind as we're doing this work. Maybe as a quick follow-up, just thinking of the implications for organizations, can you maybe mention some of the specific aspects for implementing gender action, or the implications for organizations from your work?
Yeah, well, again, they're not like simple answers to that, right? And of course, there are many ways in which we can promote gender equality in leadership and in boards. But I would say that the solution is, at least, it has to go in a double direction. First of all, in this sex dimension that I was mentioning before, so we need more women, and we need to put these women on boards. We need to promote their presence in leadership positions. And here, for example, we have the typical positive discrimination action, like quotas. We just, in Spain, for example, we just had a law establishing these quotas, 40% of women in all private companies that are with certain characteristics, more than 250 employees and so on, and this will be compulsory in Spanish companies, private companies. So that's a way of promoting more women, but we also need to take care about the other dimension, the gender dimension. And we have to promote a more androgynous, if you want, cultural model of leadership, right? So we need to create and favor organizational cultures, values, leadership styles that are more that are accepting more these stereotypically feminine characteristics. And to do that is not only about having these quotas, and it's not only about having work-life balance measures, for example, which is of course very important. That's important in itself, and also mentoring programs. And I think that Margarita will talk about that later. And these are important things. But again, let's not forget the other dimension, the change management approach somehow, which is deeper, right? We need to change the system itself. So we need to implement strategic and institutional feminism, right? So where the structures in the organization, the culture, the values themselves, they need to be changed, and they need to get closer to this feminist focus on life, on people, on social justice, right? Because otherwise we will be reproducing systems and leadership models that are far from historically from more female-oriented and feminine leadership styles. Which doesn't mean, by the way, that it has to be stereotypically feminine. That's why the term androgynous, it's important, because we need to find a balance between those stereotypically feminine and stereotypically masculine traits. Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I think you gave us lots to think about, and looking at it from especially two dimensions. One is the number of women, but also thinking of the differences between, of course, the implications of sex and gender and the values that are attached, but also the importance to change the culture of organizations so that these differences are valued and can add value to the work and the organizations. Thank you so much. I'll turn now to Patricia, and I will ask you, you've been focusing your research and work on gender equality on boards. Could you share with us more about the impacts of mainstreaming gender and gender equal policies? And what are the benefits for businesses with the increased presence of women on boards?
Well, thank you so much for the invitation, and thank you so much for the question. Building on what Leire has been telling us, I mean, the benefits of bringing diversity, first of all, to boards, it's super important. I mean, first of all, and let's assume that diversity is also going to be including gender as well, okay? So we can focus on gender diversity, but gender diversity is going to be just the tip of the iceberg to include any other kind of diversities within the board, right? What a board needs is to have diversity of opinions, to have a variety of views, and to have the possibility to see the same idea from different sides. So this is the main reason why we need to have not only women, but a variety and diversity of these points of view when it comes to boards. And what we have seen is that the more women are joining up to a certain level, because still the number of women are pretty low in the majority of the boards that we know, the higher the number of women joining those boards, the more these boards become innovative, the more these boards are concerned about, different social aspects, more about the environmental aspects around the board and the company. They try to include more diversity within the company. They care more about society, and they also make the company more profitable, all in all. And the idea behind this is not only that women are making everything better, or it's not the idea that women are making everything better. It's more that this diversity of opinions are making like pre-established ideas to be questioned, to be reassessed, and to have more ideas as well on the table. So altogether, this is making companies to be more profitable. What we have seen is that, as Leire was explaining before, it's not only that we need to include women because women are going to be offering something explicitly different. It's also that we need to achieve a specific percentage or a specific representation of women joining those boards. Okay, in order to change how power and how decisions are made within corporations, we need to have a substantive representation of minorities as of now into these groups. This has been called the critical mass in theory, and it's very interesting because this implies that whenever we have a minority that is moving or becoming a majority, then this majority is going to be more seen, is going to be part of the decision making, is going to be actually making a lot of big difference into the final outcomes of boards. So it's not only that we need to include women, it's also actually that boards are benefiting from including a higher number of women altogether. And this is what is really going to be changing boards. And most likely in the future, we will not be talking about the need of gender diversity. We'll be most likely talking about, the need of having different points of view or individual points of view, or including different socio-demographics, okay? Because this is another thing that we need to keep in mind, that of course, the way women have been raised or the way women have been educated are defining the way they behave in all areas of their life, corporate included. And this is probably one of the reasons why women are more communal and why they care more about others and why they make more rational decisions or sustainable decisions when they get to boards, okay, or when they get into any top management teams. These are, when we include women, we are thinking on including a specific profile, but we are actually thinking on including a specific skill, okay, a specific set of skills, a specific set of capabilities and knowledge, okay. So this is going to take us into something that we call deep diversity, which is really what is bringing lots of new ideas and knowledge into boards. This is what is really changing boards. Okay, so by including gender, we can include more of this deep diversity into boards.
That's excellent. Thank you. I think you gave us some more perspective on the relevance and especially of diversity, which goes beyond gender, as you said. So thank you for that. Maybe just a quick follow-up. You did mention the issue of critical mass, which I agree is very important as a turning point, really. In terms of your work, how are you seeing progress in getting to that? Do you have any concrete examples of where that's been achieved and the impacts of getting to that point?
Thank you for that question, because this is actually the background that we use, or that is being used by many governments to implement quotas. Okay, the idea that the change into including more gender diversity into top management positions is not going to be changing by itself. It's not going to be moving by itself. And so governments have been looking into different ways to promote this increment. Okay, we have the situation, or we have the proposals that are coming from UK or Australia, in which they are trying to include gender diversity in a more voluntary way. And this has been very interesting, because they've been able to increase gender diversity, and it's been a slow movement but super successful. But then we have other countries that have been following a more mandatory approach to quotas, like those are essentially Norway, Iceland. Spain is launching another one, just recently launched another one that it will be probably implemented in the future. Italy, France, and in those countries, quotas have been able to move this gender diversity percentage to this critical mass, or to go beyond this critical mass. So the benefits are not going to be achieved by random measures or kind of voluntary approaches. In those cases, those have been implemented by governments, and they've been pushing all companies to be increasing the presence of women on boards.
Thank you so much. I think you gave us also some excellent points to continue thinking about this, and to also continue moving the needle on this aspect. I'll turn now to Margarita and ask your work is focused on the business approach for female leadership and the initiatives around it. So what are some of the key initiatives for positioning women in business? In particular, what are some of the actions and solutions for promoting women's leadership, and what are some of the impacts that you've seen?
Thank you, Paula, and thank you, everybody. I'm really glad to be here. As we are talking about this, it's not been easy, and that is why we still have a huge gap in order to have more women in leadership positions and in boards. And it's because we were talking about that, mainly the culture. Specifically in some countries, the culture, it's been, tough in that way. So we have to change a little bit mindsets, not only in men, but in women as well. So we have to do several things in order to start to change this mindset and give us the opportunity to see that the benefits that we have with more women in these positions and more women in general in the different organizations. So first of all, I think we have been working a lot, giving a lot of information about the bias that we have. I think that mainly we are been talking about the bias that men has, and sometimes then we have the chance to talk with some leaders. They said the reason that maybe this is going to be a little bit slow is because men are feeling comfortable in the status quo. So it is not easy to change and give some space for women. So this cultural transformation is very, very important in order to can go forward with these initiatives. But we've been working a lot of things, different things inside the organizations and in the market in general. For example, we've been preparing women in how they go to the market and show themselves in order to show all the talent that they have and why they are going to be able to add value to organizations and, of course, in boards, as Patricia was mentioned. So sometimes they don't do this personal marketing thing that is really important in order to be there in the market and be a referent, which is really important to be selected for these positions. So we prepare women in how to abord the market through the curriculum vitae, for example, how to identify these positions that could be interesting for them, and how to prepare them to convince that, because women have a very wide bias thinking about the requirements of the positions and if they're going to be able to fill all the expectations that the companies have. So we have to prepare them in order to give them the strengths and the security that they need in order to go forward to these positions and convince the organizations that they are going to be the good ones for the positions and add value to them. We're preparing here in Colombia, and we started working as well in Latin America, a big CV bank of really powerful women, because one of the excuses of the market is that they don't have women in these positions because they are not able to see them in the market. They don't know where they are. So we are preparing a very strong bank of CVs that we are going to, and all companies have access to this bank in order to see all this talent, women talent, so they don't have, the excuse that they don't know where these women are. And inside the companies, we start working with some workshops preparing women and men in order to have this mindset changing process and cultural changing process. So we are preparing men in order to be more conscious about the bias, but that they can actually propose some actions in order to go forward with this. So, for example, they are going to have some actions that then we are going to be measured in the evaluation process, in the performance evaluation process. And then with women, we are working as well, breaking this bias and making them feel more comfortable with their strengths, their talents, and showing them to the market, because it's funny that the women have huge difficulties in order to do that. So, we have to do workshops, coaching with men, with women, in order to get this done and go forward with this changing of the culture of the organization, so we can finally get this gap smaller through the years.
Thank you so much, Margarita. I think you also gave us some great points, things that I've seen also in my work, especially in filling that gap mostly, well, one side is the women's side, right? And what some people call the imposter syndrome, but it's the confidence, it's some of the aspects of building that strength, but also what we call the excuse that sometimes comes from companies or organizations and not finding women, right? Especially in certain areas such as tech and finance. I just wanted to quickly follow up if you've, from your work so far, have you seen the impact of this? Just any examples would be great to know in terms of having this insertion, and great to know that you're working on this bank of CVs and having this pool of candidates, which I think is part of what can be a huge resource to advance positioning women in companies at in different levels.
Yes, Paula, for example, we're being analyzing some statistics in Latin America. And for example, in Colombia, we have a very nice numbers right now. Of course, the gap still big, but for example, in the last years, we go ahead with more women in boards in a significant way. For example, we passed, I think, 18% to 21.2 more or less percent of women in boards. So I think that we are going forward. And the other thing is that if you measure, for example, the people inside of the organization, most of the women are like in the base of the organization, because they are trying to get in there with more women in the organization, but they're still being in the base of the talent that you have toward the organization. So we still have to work in order to be to have more women in higher positions, in leadership positions. We still have a few there, but we have to prepare the space for that. And we have prepared women with a lot of initiatives, but making them feel more comfortable. And the other thing that is very important that I think could help us, and it's been helping us as a matter of fact, is that women can help other women, because we know what we are going through and all the bias and all the things that we have from the women part of view, but as well in the rest of the organization. So working with all women, other women, in order to mentor them and go forward with these initiatives, I could tell that made the difference. And now we can see that we have more women, for example, as general managers in the companies, more presidents, women in several companies, and they are more visible right now. So I think that we are going forward, a little bit slow for me, I think, but we can tell that as a matter of fact, we have more women in leadership positions, adding value and generating more impact to the market.
Thank you, Margarita. This is excellent. And I think, between the three of you, we've really covered so many of the aspects for this work, looking at it from the individual perspective, connected to, gender roles, the differences between the different values and the traits and characteristics that men, women, and different stakeholders bring. The importance of diversity, and even going beyond gender, but starting with gender, how that has impacts both on corporations themselves, on leadership and organizations, the decisions that they make, the impact that they have, but also more broadly on society. And then also looking at what are some of the things that are being done and that can be done, both from a government perspective with mandated quotas, from the private sector perspective with the voluntary approaches, but also with supporting women themselves, with specific training, with specific initiatives that can be done to support women to being prepared and really being ambitious and positioning themselves in these roles. So I think with all of this, we have a lot of contribution to the work on the topic, a lot of food for thought, but also insights for advancing the work and hopefully making progress more quickly. I agree that we should move faster on this aspect because it really is so relevant. So thank you again for sharing so much of your work, your research and your practical work on the topic. And I know that I've learned a lot, and I hope all of us listening and participating have also been able to gain a lot from this session. Thank you again.